week 2 for the Jaguars. OTAs on the field. Got out there earlier this week to take a look at Calvin Ridley, Trevor Lawrence, and the rest of the Jacksonville Jaguars, including brand new kicker Brandon McManus, who apparently reached out to Jacksonville wanting to come here. That hasn't happened a whole lot recently. That's what goes to show you what happens when you got a coach like Doug Peterson and a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. Let's talk Jaguars, AFC South, and more with Jarrett Bailey of USA Today. He does a great job covering the National Football League, and he's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jarrett, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Glad to be on. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, we're kind of reaching that point in the off season where we're between the schedule release and training camp. So just trying to soak in all this OTA stuff as much as we can before the real thing kicks off in just a couple months.
Yeah, it's been interesting to be out there, see Calvin Ridley, see a couple of the new guys, obviously Anton Harrison, the big tackle out of Oklahoma. Before we talk about the Jaguars as a whole, Jarrett, one thing I mentioned with Brandon McManus, we found out earlier this week the former kicker from Denver apparently reached out to the Jaguars wanting to come here. And boy, when we heard that earlier this week from special teams coach Heath Farwell, everybody in the media here did kind of a, wow, because that just hasn't happened here in Jacksonville. People actually wanting to come here, but I guess that's what happens when you have, Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, and what they're building.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of just hit the nail on the head when you have a team that actually is building toward winning and having goals. Yeah, you're going to get people that want to come play there, which is something that we haven't seen in Jacksonville for quite some time. Especially over the last decade when they've been, somewhat of the laughing stock of the NFL. But yeah, you bring in a head coach like Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winning head coach who's respected around the league. They hit with Trevor Lawrence, and he showed last year that he's living up, or at least starting to live up to that potential that everybody expected him to live up to coming out of Clemson when the Jaguars selected him in the NFL draft. But yeah, I'm excited for Jacksonville. I think that everybody kind of expected them to take a step forward last season. I don't think anybody expected division title in year 2 of Trevor Lawrence and year 1 of Doug Peterson. But man, oh man, this is turning out to be a fun team that added more pieces over this off season, and yeah, kind of becoming one of the darlings of the NFL, if you will, around the league. So when you have, like I said, when you have goals in mind and show clear aspirations of winning and wanting, to chase a championship, you're going to get respected vets that want to come to your team.
Jarrett Bailey of the USA Today here with us on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jarrett, I don't think 12 months ago we fully understood, media fans alike, what we were getting with Doug Peterson. A lot of people wanted Byron Leftwich, right? A lot of people wanted other guys. Doug Peterson, yeah, he won a Super Bowl in Philly, but it did not end very well. And good grief, man. We certainly know what we have now. What that guy has brought here, I can't tell you how refreshing it is to actually have wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs open in space and actually turn up and make extra yardage. As juvenile as that sounds, we haven't had that here in a while. So from his play calling to the culture he's stabled here, and then what he's done with Trevor is just night and day compared to that fiasco with Urban. So, boy, Doug Peterson right now, Jarrett, appears to be a home run.
Yeah, and it's crazy because, like you said, like there was many people who believed it was going to be Byron Leftwich getting the head coaching job a little bit over a year ago, and like I get it, he played there. It would be a fun story and whatnot. But when you have a Super Bowl winning head coach available who has shown capabilities of aiding young quarterbacks and getting the very best out of them, like he did with Carson Wentz at the time, and helping Nick Foles lead a team to a Super Bowl victory through the playoffs. Like that's something that you just got to go out and a move that you got to make. So look, they're reaping the rewards of it already. They have a playoff win in year 1 under Peterson, and now you look at just the array of weapons that they have. Christian Kirk surprised a lot of people last year with his production. And, it was kind of the clowning of the offseason last year, too, because he got so much money and everybody was like, oh, my goodness, what is Jacksonville doing? And sure, maybe Christian Kirk isn't, you know, necessarily, I would say, worth almost $20 million a year, but his production definitely, said, look, they brought me in for a reason, and I'm going to live up to it. And he played very well. And then they bring in Calvin Ridley via the trade. They draft Parker Washington from Penn State, Zay Jones. Like, they have a deep receiving group, and then Evan Ingram had a breakout year last year and was a Pro Bowler at tight end. So their offense is very fun and got better on paper, at least. You mentioned that they brought in Anton Harrison, which is a move I don't think that they do if Cam Robinson doesn't get suspended. I thought that they would maybe go with a safety or somebody in the defensive backfield in the first round, but they're kind of showing, look, we need to keep Trevor upright, and you know Anton Harrison. They tagged Cam Robinson. Looks like Anton Harrison's going to be their tackle of the future. So I'm loving everything that I see from the Jaguars on the offensive side of the ball. We'd still like to see them make a few more moves in the defensive backfield on that side of the ball. But yeah, this is an offense that Peterson has shown everywhere that he's gone. He's made offenses better and brought the very best out of his guys.
Jarrett Bailey of the USA Today here with us on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jarrett, your opinion on Trevor Lawrence and kind of where he stacks up among the other quarterbacks in the AFC?
Right. So every year I do a 1 to 32 quarterback list and I release it. And let me actually pull that up right now and I'll tell you where I have Trevor Lawrence because I don't know off the top of my head exactly where I had him from releasing this a few weeks ago. So I didn't hesitate in terms of putting him very high. I have him fifth. I have him behind Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and then it's Trevor Lawrence. If you want to argue that Jalen Hurts should be there because he led a team to a Super Bowl and whatnot, I wouldn't argue with that too much. But the guys behind him, already, I'm more than comfortable saying that Trevor Lawrence is a better, just pure quarterback than Lamar Jackson is. I think at this stage of his career, Aaron Rodgers isn't quite as good as Trevor Lawrence is and doesn't have the ceiling that Trevor Lawrence can still reach. So I'm more than comfortable after this year with, especially after the rookie season that he had and all the turmoil that he went through with Urban and everything. I think everybody was kind of scared that his growth was stunted, and he showed that in that coming out party against Baltimore with that game-winning drive against the Ravens. I think that was him kind of saying, look, I'm here. My growth hasn't been stunted, and I'm going to live up to the potential that everybody expects me to. So I've got no problem putting him at number 5 right now. And again, if you want to argue that Jalen Hurts should be there, I would listen to that argument, but I'm not putting Lawrence lower than 6 right now in terms of the other quarterbacks around the league.
You mentioned the talent on this offense with the addition of Ridley, Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. Travis Etienne will be in his second full year recovered from the Liz Frank injury. I mean, it looks like they got a ton, Jarrett, on offense. I think one of the main questions is, do the Jaguars have enough on defense to compete in the AFC? What's your thought there?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit. I would have liked to have seen them get a little bit more aggressive in landing somebody in the secondary. Like Rayshon Jenkins is a dog, and I would love to have him in my locker room. Andre Cisco, like these are guys that are they've got like an intense passion for the game, but like you can do better than Andre Cisco. You can upgrade from Rayshon Jenkins. You could probably get somebody else in at nickel corner as well. I would like to have seen them be a little bit. And look, they still can. Like a guy like Buda Baker is someone that could be targeted. Somebody via free agency if they wanted to make a move from that standpoint. But like you look at the front 7, like Folaronzi Fatakasi was a very fun story, and I think that they're pretty solid with him coming off the edge. Josh Allen is a solid edge rusher. So I think they've got a solid duo there with Fatakasi and Josh Allen. And then you look at their linebacking situation. Olakam, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker was kind of a head-scratching selection at number 1 overall last year. But we saw glimpses that he can be somebody that they can rely on. He needs to take a leap this coming season to back up being the number 1 overall pick, especially with Aiden Hutchinson looking as good as he did. So the front 7, I think, is solid. I don't think it's great, but I think it's okay. The defensive backfield, I would like to see an upgrade at safety. You look at Darius Williams, Tyson Campbell, like they're starting 2 corners again. They're fine. Like you can certainly do better, but upgrading the safety position is still something that I would like to see them do before going into the regular season this year. But in terms of weaknesses on the roster, I mean, there's not many. Which is, more than we've been able to say about Jacksonville in recent years.
A couple of more for Jarrett Bailey of the USA Today here with us on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jarrett, here in Jacksonville, we're trying not to get too far ahead of the story. But if you look on paper, man, I mean, the division right now is Houston looks like they're in a rebuild, although the arrow might be pointing up finally. Indy, same thing, first year head coach and probably a rookie quarterback. By the way, a rookie quarterback we know very well here in Anthony Richardson that has thrown the ball less than 900 times in his football career. That's high school and college. And then who really knows what Tennessee's doing? So is it really as cut and dry as it looks in the division that the Jaguars might have very little problems winning this thing?
Yeah, I don't know the odds off the top of my head in terms of all the leaders in terms of who's going to win their division, but I would bet that the Jaguars probably have the best odds of winning their division just because of everything you just pointed out. Like Tennessee is well coached with Vrabel, but there's nothing there, man. Like I don't know what they're going to do at receiver, and God forbid Derrick Henry get hurt again. That's a 3-win team maximum. I think that they had plans of Anthony Richardson perhaps falling to number 12, and then they had to kind of scramble and panic. And Will Levis was just kind of there in the second round, so they took him. I think we'll see him sooner than later. I think we've seen all that Ryan Tannehill can do, and he's definitely reached his peak a few years ago. Now we're just kind of it's a matter of if not when Will Levis plays at some point this season. But the offensive line, they lost 3 offensive line starters. Yes, they brought in Andre Dillard from the Eagles. We haven't really seen a whole lot from him. He's a former first-round pick, but he just got stuck in a place where offensive linemen are just grown on trees, apparently, in Philadelphia. We haven't seen too much of Andre Dillard. But if he lives up to his potential, then we know that they got a good tackle at that spot. They drafted Skronsky. So the Titans are just in a weird spot where they think they can still be a playoff team, but everybody else on the outside looking in says, yeah, this is probably a top 10 drafting team next year. And then you look at Indianapolis and Houston, teams that are kind of in similar boats, new head coaches, rookie quarterbacks. Um, Houston is trying to get more weapons around CJ Stroud. The Colts need to get a little bit more weapons around Anthony Richardson. But the thing that the Colts have at a slight advantage over the Texans is that Shane Steichen is the perfect coach to have for Anthony Richardson. We saw what he did briefly with Justin Herbert. We've seen what he has done with Jalen Hurts. And I think that this can be a similar situation to Lamar Jackson, where he can use his legs to his advantage and kind of learn on the job and um, you know perfect his accuracy and his mechanics while getting these reps. So they're going to lean heavily into him running the ball early on, which is you got to be a little bit cautious of with your quarterback. But I think that is one thing that the Colts will have as an advantage over Houston is that, yes, CJ Stroud is very mechanically sound. He's still going to experience his lumps as a rookie. Anthony Richardson is going to do the same thing, but his legs are going to be able to bail him out of a lot of situations while he learns the offense, while he learns how to, progress against NFL defenses and, progress through plays and progress through his reads. So that is one thing I'll be excited to see about Indianapolis is how fast will Anthony Richardson hit the ground running and how fast will we start seeing him elevate his game and how much of his potential will be unlocked in year one. But as much fun of those stories that Indianapolis and Houston are, and then Tennessee is just a big wild card. I don't see any of those three coming close to competing with the Jaguars unless something goes catastrophically wrong. And Duval, I think that this is very much the Jaguars' division to lose.
Jarrett Bailey of the USA Today. Jarrett, as we wrap up, I agree, and it's weird because on Thanksgiving the Jaguars were 4-8 last year, right, and they were going nowhere, and then all of a sudden now here we are in end of May, beginning of June, and the Jaguars are the overwhelming favorite in the division. It just goes to show you how quickly things change. With that as a backdrop, look, I'm not the ultimate homer here, man. I'm not going to tell you the Jaguars are better than Kansas City or Cincinnati because I don't believe they are, but what I do believe is those divisions are brutal, man. And I think there's going to be some attrition. I think those teams are going to eat each other. And as a result of that, with the Jaguars playing 6 games in the AFC South and another 4 games against the NFC South, which is arguably the worst division in the NFC, man, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people down here that are talking about a 3 seed, maybe a 2 seed for the Jaguars this year if things fall their way.
Man, I'm saying, I mean, the Jaguars are like the hipster pick to be the 1 seed in the AFC this year. And you know what? I'll lean into that a little bit right now because of the things that we've pointed out throughout this. They play in by far the easiest divisions and not just the AFC, probably the league right now. I mean, if you want to say the NFC South is a little bit worse, I would listen to that. But in terms of the advantage that they have at quarterback over everybody else in that division, like it's not to say necessarily as you hear a dog go crazy in the background. It's it's not to necessarily say that they're better than Kansas City or that they're better than Cincinnati, but they have an easier road to get there than those two teams. So, it's not completely asinine to think that the Jaguars could win 13 games this year and be the number one seed. While, like you said, the Bengals, they play in a tough AFC North where Baltimore's there. Pittsburgh's going to be, a relevant factor and better. Cleveland, we'll see what happens with Deshaun Watson and his first 4 years, the Browns quarterback. Like, that's not an easy division by any means. And then you go over to the AFC West where the Chargers have shown that, they're at least relevant and Justin Herbert's really good. And they've got a new offensive coordinator with Kellen Moore. They bring in Quentin Johnston. Like, they've got a ton of weapons on that side of the ball and a new offensive coordinator who's going to let Herbert sling it. Defensively, they have the pieces. They just need him to stay healthy. And then Sean Payton is now in Denver. Now, I think the Raiders are a tire fire, but those other two, I think, will be better than what they were last year. So I think that if you wanted to say that the Jaguars have a good chance of being the one seed, I would listen to it simply because, one, they are very talented. They have a good head coach and a great quarterback, and they play in a very easy division that will play right into their hand. Again, it's not to say that I think that they're better than the Chiefs, that they're better than the Bengals, that they're better than the Bills, but, what those three teams have is more difficult divisions that'll probably count for at least one or two more losses than Jacksonville will have to deal with in the AFC South. We saw it a few years ago when Tennessee was the number one seed in the AFC. No one for a second thought that they were better than the Chiefs. It's just kind of how the cookie crumbled. I could definitely see that happening for Jacksonville this year.
Jarrett Bailey does a terrific job covering the NFL for USA Today. He's always kind enough to join us here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Jarrett, really enjoyed the conversation. Man, thank you very much. We'll do it again soon.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Take care.